Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's roundtable, The New Rules of Renter Search, where we'll explore how today's renters search, interact with, and ultimately choose new places to live. Before we get started, I'd like to briefly run through a few webinar housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded and it will be available to rewatch or share. The information will be emailed to you in just a few days. During today's presentation, feel free to submit your questions at any time using the question tool on your screen. We'll try to answer as many as possible during the time we've set aside for Q&A. However, if we're not able to get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up with you directly. Lastly, at the end of today's roundtable, there is a chance to win a $50 gift card for filling out a short survey. We'd appreciate you taking a minute or two to answer these questions, provide feedback on what you've heard here today, as well as provide any ideas for future webinars or topics you're interested in learning about. And now I will turn the time over to my colleague Spencer here for introductions and to run our roundtable. Over to you, Spencer.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Spencer City. I'm the VP of Sales for Soci's Property Division. I've spent over a decade in the multifamily industry, and I've had the privilege of being one of the early team members behind launching and scaling Soci's property vertical. I've been a part of a number of these consumer report releases over the years, and I gotta say, this is probably one of the most compelling ones that I can remember. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by three industry standout leaders who share their insights and experiences based on the findings from Soci's latest renter and consumer report, which we call the New Rules of Renter Search. Our speakers today, again, are Sarah Graham, Kelly Turner, and Sarah Giancarella. I'll start with just introductions for Sarah Graham. Sarah is the founder and CEO of Six Dots Consulting, which is a strategic advisory firm for multifamily operators and early stage prop tech companies. She works at the intersection of marketing, operations, and technology, helping teams sharpen their positioning, streamline execution, and build the infrastructure for scalable, measurable growth. Next, we have Kelly Turner, who is marketing manager at Anchor Pacifica. Kelly's worked over 19 years in the multifamily housing industry. She's raised in a real estate family in Altadena. She held her various roles in property management to portfolio manager. Her well-rounded experience fuels her expertise in operations, tenant relations, and strategic marketing across multifamily industry. Lastly, we're joined by Sarah Giancarella, who is the VP of Marketing at Olympus Property, which is an innovative multifamily investment and property management firm valued at over $8 billion. With an accounting and financial services background, Sarah contributes to a unique perspective driven by data and analytics to the Olympus marketing strategy. And she's also implemented several innovative platforms during her tenure at Olympus that have been instrumental to the company's overall growth and success. Sarah is a champion of adaptation to the continuously evolving marketing landscape and a proponent of strategic changes to better align with and to support the new renters journey. So before we dive in, let me set the stage a bit here around this report. This report breaks down the three biggest behavioral shifts currently transforming how renters search, research, and choose where to live. So we surveyed at the beginning of the year more than 1,000 renters, and this is where this content and this data comes from. So for more context, the renter search journey isn't what it used to be, and neither is renter. So Gen Z, millennials who make up majority of today's rental markets are using 3 to 4 platforms before making a decision. That means your community brand must show up not just at the end of the search, but at the very beginning and at every point in between. This naturally can be daunting. It's no longer about just ranking first. It's about being everywhere that matters along the path to lease. So for my opening question to the panel, we here at Soci often hear that both marketing and on-site community teams are already operating at full capacity. They're stretched thin, they're busy. Given that, how are you and your teams adapting to the evolving demands and shifting behaviors in how renters search today?
I can speak to this a little bit. I think, we all think of marketing as this funnel, and marketing is it's really changed a lot, and you sort of mentioned this a moment ago, Spencer, but I think the journey is not linear. And so our job as marketers, it used to be somewhat linear, where you'd sort of see this multi-step journey and it was fairly predictable. And I think as marketers today, we are challenged to wrap our brains around what has really become a pretty fractured landscape. and to help our teams on site to understand that process too. So the idea of multi-touch attribution and really understanding all of the different places that someone may visit, like TikTok and ChatGPT and looking at Google Maps. And yes, ILSs are still part of the mix, but there's this really sort of messy funnel, and I would maybe not even go so far to call it a funnel any longer, but I think that's really what we are challenged with as marketers today. And again, supporting our on-site teams, because people will often come in and say, I saw you on social, or I saw you from some other thing, or I found you on Chat GPT. If we're not optimizing for search in Chat GPT, we're missing out. So I think there's a lot there. The landscape has really changed. And I would say, every touch point, every scroll, it's a validation moment. And that's really where the opportunity lies.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And I have an interesting story. And I didn't even realize that ChatGPT was becoming part of the renter's search until I actually had the opportunity to chat with a group of high school students at the Apartment Innovation and Marketing Conference AIM last year in 2024. And they were asking questions to me, and I was like, I think I could actually learn a lot more from them than they can learn from me. And so I said, if your parents were to kick you out of your house today, how would you find a place to live? Like, what would the steps be that you would go about doing in order to find an apartment to live in? And so I found their response very interesting. They said first they would Google apartments in a certain location, and then they would come up with a list of, say, 3 to 5 different apartments. And then they would put all of those apartment names into ChatGPT and have ChatGPT run an analysis on all of those based on their individual preferences and things that they were looking for in their home. And I found that absolutely fascinating because they said they would have it kind of summarize all the reviews at the property. They would have it summarize all of the amenities. They would even ask it about potentially the demographics at the property and things like that. And that was eye-opening to me because at the time, ChatGPT was not necessarily as evolved as it is now, but that was still where they went to first in their journey. So to me, the answer for what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are consistent across all different platforms and that our digital curb appeal is 10 out of 10 would recommend. Like it is unmatched because if it is not perfect across all platforms, where does ChatGPT scrape from? It scrapes from everything and all of the content that we put out there. And so as long as we are making sure that that's consistent, we have our best foot forward on every single avenue, even though there's so many avenues out there, that is going to behoove us in the best results for that next generation of renters.
I
I love that
agree.
story.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
love
Shannon.
that. I agree. And I think for us, our goal is to create clarity, consistency, capacity, just make sure that, our FAQs are up to date. And that all of our ads, the information on our website is correct. Because everyone's going to search now and they're searching online. And if it's not correct or it's not what what they're looking for, they're on to the next. It used to be where, you would wait 24 hours to get a response, but now everything is instantaneously. And a lot of the times they've already gathered the information from ChatGPT or another platform. So now they're just ready to go to the next step. So it's always good that we make sure that we have all of our information correct, all our FAQs up to date, our pictures, like you said, Sarah, curb appeal, just making sure, and also making sure our teams are, well trained on these new platforms. And I think it's something that we definitely, it's a change, and we just have to make sure that everyone is going along with that.
One
I
thing
would
that I personally try to do, as often as I can, and I should really do it more, is go through the prospect journey yourself. I did this a couple of years ago when my brother and his wife were looking for an apartment, and I did everything from booking tours online to actually attending the tours in person. And we probably toured about 10 different apartment complexes, and the experience I had at each one was vastly different. And just being in the renter's shoes again was eye eye-opening, and how much it's changed even in, the past 5 years. I think that's something that if you kind of reverse put yourself in the renter's shoes, like what experience do you want to have? And that just helps you become a better marketer and support your site teams better.
I would layer into that. I 100% agree, Sarah. I recently shopped some properties for a client, their property versus their three top comps. And it's fascinating to see if you think about email, text, and phone, what comes through and when. And so if you're shopping to sort of witness that cadence and recognize how much is too much, how much is too little, the opportunity that's lost if you're not receiving any contact in 24 hours, all of that is incredibly important. But I would also say, just back to the Chat GPT thing for one moment, if you go into incognito mode and you say, tell me about the best apartments in city, state, pick a city and state. I'm in Boston, so Boston, and watch what it says, because it is serving what Kelly and Sarah were speaking to a moment ago with digital curb appeal and all of the assets that you've claimed and optimized. That is where chat is getting most of its information. And so if you don't have those building blocks out there, you are missing out. It's an opportunity to go build your FAQs and to really think about what's coming back, particularly with reviews and all of the different information that's out there. But be in incognito mode. Don't search it as you if you use chat regularly, because it will know who you are and will cater the responses to you and what you typically talk to chat about. But incognito mode is your best friend to do sort of a quick litmus test and figure out what is actually out there being said about your property, your management company, et cetera. So it's an incredibly insightful, quick little exercise.
Are the three of you deploying and using AI in your businesses currently? I mean, and so like how are you using it, and what have you learned so far?
My clients are looking at it. I'm working with an ownership group currently that is really hyper focused on optimizing for the resident journey. And so part of my scope of work with them has been meeting with on-site teams, talking about, what's working, what isn't, and then experiencing the resident journey. So again, understanding those points of friction and, where things are breaking or where things feel complicated. And then how do we think about AI and automation in an intentional way, to augment the teams and really supercharge the work that they need to do personally versus sort of automating the mundane, getting them out of the weeds, so to speak, and putting them where a human really needs to shine. So I can say from the clients that I'm working with, that is absolutely a focus. But it's AI with intention. It's not just, throw some shiny tech out there and let's see what happens. It needs to be managed. It's a tool, and like any other tool, it needs to be managed.
Yes, I agree. We are currently using a chatbot on our website, and it does have AI incorporated into it. So the chatbot will talk to the prospect first, and you can either continue the conversation or the managers can jump in, which we like because we do, sometimes people need that human connection. And sometimes the chatbot does not always get it right. And sometimes the information is not correct. And we're learning that. And that's another thing, Sarah, you were speaking of, checking, going on to incognito. I make sure that our managers go and check the chatbot and go through the render experience. And I also do it too, to just make sure that the information is correct. If they're looking for a 1-bedroom and it's giving the 1-bedroom, but it's giving the price of the 2-bedroom, there's certain things, the chatbot, the AI has to learn a lot. And so it's a learning experience. It's definitely been difficult for our managers, but we are, we're just day by day learning different things and learning different tools and how we can, create a great experience for our renters. But it's definitely, there was a big learning curve, and definitely things that we have to get used to. And, this is the way things are going. And so we just want to make sure that, we're doing that.
I completely agree, and there's obviously challenges and hiccups when you look at it, from a site level perspective. But I think the biggest thing that helped us getting the buy-in from the site teams was saying, this is here to support you and help you make more money and get more leases. The AI cannot get a commission. It doesn't work that way. And once we got buy-in from certain teams, those teams became almost ambassadors of AI products at the site level. And they would give testimonials to our teams that were across the country. And so then if you have, a leasing consultant in Georgia that's hearing a leasing consultant in Arizona say, wow, this has saved me so much time. It's helped me book way more tours. It's given me time to give back to residents. I really enjoy this product. They're going to listen to that because that's one of their peers. It's not somebody from corporate that's just saying, oh, this is the way it's going. Too bad for you. But this is what I now have. It's a tool in my toolbox. We did a whole leasing summit that earlier this year as a company, and it was all about what tools are in your toolbox as a leasing consultant, and how can you be equipped to do your job the best way possible, and just really coming at it from like a support leader type of a perspective rather than a commanding leader type of perspective, I think can go a long way with all of these crazy technology transitions that are currently happening at very rapid pace.
Yeah, I think what we also let them know is this is not replacing you. It's here to help you. And especially even with after hours, after hour, a lot of inquiries come in at night. And so it's great that we have a bot that can, or AI that can talk to them, give them the information they need, get the application process started if they want to. So it's been a help, a big help for us too, as well. And again, we're saying we're not replacing you. We're just adding tools to help you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, this time next year, maybe in 6 months from now. Like right now, our report, we showcase that 19% of Gen Z uses ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Gemini, right? I'll sort of shift this conversation a little bit, not necessarily away from AI, because we know that that's AI might tell them what to buy, but people tell them, why, essentially. So what we're showcasing in this report, or what we've learned, is that still 73% of the Gen Z are using Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram to search. You're talking social channels here, right? And candidly, in our industry, I think sometimes there's a movement. Sometimes they feel like they got to get away from social, and rather they need to lean in even more. So I'd love to hear kind of what you guys' thoughts around that, and just the, I don't know, complexities or challenges that come with managing Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, the fact that they love, video content 40% over text. How are you guys handling that today in your business?
I think social is one of those areas where it's really easy to get stuck because it feels so overwhelming. And there are all of these different channels. And one of the things that if you're just starting out and saying, okay, where do we begin? Pick one thing. And knock that out of the park before you say, hey, let's layer in some additional platforms. Facebook used to be kind of the gold standard. And I would say, if you're Gen Z, I don't know a lot of Gen Z folks that are maybe on Facebook, but they are on Instagram and they are on TikTok. And I think, there's this ability to create once and publish everywhere, where you can use, one video clip and put that, in different shorts, and you can use it across different platforms. And so the idea of just starting simply. I think we get caught up in the excitement sometimes, and I know in working with on-site teams for decades, there is a lot of excitement, and people are super excited to showcase the community and all of the different aspects of that, and what the experience is really like living on site. But I think there's you know my biggest thing in working with teams is like, let's keep it simple and use content over and over again in different ways. And doing that actually streamlines content calendars beautifully. And it makes it easier for marketers to help support that sort of distribution of content too. If you're in a situation, if your org is centralized where marketing does certain things and site teams do other things, that makes it a lot easier for us to support those efforts too. So those are some of the things that I've seen and have historically worked really well, even when you layer the newer content platforms on top.
Simple. Sarah, Kelly, any thoughts?
think
go ahead, Sarah.
for us, I think one thing that we have struggled with is just making sure we have a consistent brand across our entire portfolio, even as we continue to grow. And I will say that Sochi has actually been very helpful in enabling us to do that. But it's how can you look at what certain properties' needs are, and then also have a consistent brand, but also have that organic content that is at the site level, because that is what Gen Z wants. Maybe they don't want something that's absolutely perfect. They just want the real content. They want somebody that's going to FaceTime them and give them a tour of the property if they can't come in person. So, one thing that we do, and we've done this for years, is on a quarterly basis, we give our teams basically a toolbox, another type of toolbox that has content ideas for them to help promote on-site events or different tools that they can take advantage of. And we call it our Ignite box. And so our goal is to expand this more into the social realm moving forward, and to help them and equip them with the tools they need to create professional but also consistent content across the organization.
Well
I
said.
agree. Consistency is big, and for us, it's for me. It's just me in the department. So we have the Sochi dashboard, so it really helps us. It's helped me. It's like my right hand, my assistant is what I call it. But yes, consistency and having posts, consistent post and content, and then also we have a lot of resident activities. So always have the managers film videos of the event, so that prospects can see, hey, this is what goes on at the building, and oh, they're having a good time, they had a barbecue or whatever it is. And then really, and I agree with what Sarah was saying, is that also the prospects would rather see, Gen Z would rather see shaky videos that are unedited than a professional video. It's fine if it's not, it's not 100% professional. They just want to see what's going on at the property, and they want, to see the real, the real behind the real. So I think that's something that is definitely, that's what we do, and it's helped us, and just let them know what's going on at the property and see how it is and what it's like to live at our properties.
Yeah, you're really validating, all of you are really validating what we found in our research too, that this AI reduces friction in finding information, but it's still that human-centered content that closes that gap between curiosity and confidence. So it's like, what is it like to live here? What's nearby? What's the vibe? And what are the renters saying? So I think and yeah, a lot of times that source, the best source, is obviously the on-site teams. And so just finding that balance between, not overworking, overtaxing, yet getting great content. So it's
Real is better than perfect, I think.
Yeah.
And that's easier for teams too, which is good news. But the real wins every time. I think there's been a really interesting shift away from sort of this heavy lift, overproduced, and those pieces are beautiful. That sort of dream reel that shows what the ideal lifestyle looks like in your community. Those are incredibly impactful, but I think there's a lot of power in the real, and the shaky video, the on-site team that's getting an event ready for residents. There's a lot of value in that, and I think a level of authenticity that comes through in those images and those videos, and the pictures that come through from the teams are that's really where the magic happens. So I think that's, I'm not surprised that the study highlighted that, but it's nice to hear all of us talking about what we've seen work and actually have that come through and be validated by actual data. So sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to speak over you.
Oh, no, you're good. We actually had an interesting situation pop up last week where there was a TikTok video that a resident at our community had filmed, and unfortunately, it did not portray us in the best light. And so my thoughts were, okay, we obviously we were able to resolve the issue with the resident, get them to take it down, but how can we get people to almost leave reviews on social media with videos? because what if they do really enjoy living at the community? I feel like that is kind of the direction that we're going to move at going forward, is how can we get all of our residents to almost become mini ambassadors, because they might not have, thousands upon thousands of followers and be an influencer, but people are still posting content all the time. And a lot of them will do, a day in the life here. This is what I love about X, Y, and Z. And so how can we tackle that? I think is going to be one thing that we have to focus on in the future, is getting our residents and getting control over how they are portraying our community or the lifestyle at one of our communities.
Awesome. Want to remind everyone too, we are getting some great questions in the chat. We're going to save those to the end. Hope you guys don't mind, and we'll be sure to save plenty of time for the panel to answer those. So I had a question that's on my mind lately. When you think about using social, ChatGPT, all that, these are different mindsets when it comes to maybe like an ownership group or a budget stakeholder. Like sometimes there's this sense that they don't believe in it, they don't see it. So I'm curious if you guys run into that in your own experiences, and having to justify essentially how powerful social and naturally reviews and listings are to your business. Can you maybe talk through some situations like that, or how you handle that?
I've been in the trenches with a client on this exact topic.
Mm.
So we are doing some deep dive marketing analysis, and my client doesn't have a lot of reviews, and their comps do. And so there's sort of this interesting chicken and egg question to say, is it the resident experience that gets the reviews that then gets more residents in the door? Or is there sort of this alternative view where, maybe great things are happening at the site, but nobody's talking about them? But the visibility, I think, is really where the sort of question comes up to say, the value of reviews in your SEO alone is so incredibly impactful and important that you can't ignore it. And so I think, there is this question of how much do reviews really matter? How much does social really matter? But again, I think the SEO alone is, pointing a big flashing arrow towards ROI of those types of activities, to say, if you can't be found, then you're lagging behind. And so I think there's a lot of focus, rightly so, on making sure that you do have a digital footprint, which includes reviews and includes social, and that those things are managed, that you don't just sort of stick a stake in the ground and say, yep, we're on Instagram now, but then you don't do anything with it. Or you're not responding to the reviews that come in, and being thoughtful about the way that you do respond to those things. A templated thank you for your feedback on every single review does you no favors. And so I think the intentional management and sort of curation of those assets leading to your digital footprint, or building your digital footprint is maybe a better way to say that. There is huge value in that. And I think it's really hard to argue with the ROI on that standpoint. I'd be curious to hear what Sarah and Kelly think, though.
Mean, we had a property that when we purchased it, it had 2.7 stars on Google and horrible reviews. And we worked very hard to overcome that hurdle. And eventually the property got to a 4.5 on Google with hundreds of reviews. And one of my now team members actually was working at the property when this occurred. And so it was really exciting to see the progress. And our asset management team did a financial study on the impact that it made at the property. And there was a direct correlation between the improvement in the reputation on Google with not only the occupancy, but also the income that the property was bringing in. And so I think that, that spoke volumes to the importance of reviews. And so at the end of 2022, we made a push to make sure that every single property in our entire portfolio was above a 4.0. That is our minimum standard, right? With the goal of being a 4.5 or above. But you will not believe the amount of people that say I leased at your property, because when I looked at those reviews compared to the reviews of all the properties within a certain vicinity, they were the best. And you guys had the best reputation online. And so it definitely the numbers might not be there every single time, but knowing that they're there and knowing the importance of it, I think that's something that I personally have struggled with kind of like a financial and analytical background, is like, oh, social media at the property level sometimes can fall to the wayside. The importance of having it there, the value is still so critical. And again, the consistency is so critical because it does play such a huge role nowadays in the overall performance of the asset.
Agreed. And not just with the renter's journey in life. We go to Amazon, we go to Yelp for reviews on what to buy, on where to eat, on where to take your car. So that was something that we were like, we have to make sure that we have reviews so that people, when they search, they can see, what is going on with the property, what people are saying about the property. And one thing we was big that I was pushing is that we have to respond to the reviews, because that was the one thing. If you're not responding, if you're taking too long to respond, it's showing that you care. And people see that we care, good or bad reviews. We respond to all of them, and we respond to them within 24 hours. And it's made a big difference. And it's actually, we've seen such growth, and we get a lot of rentals, and a lot of residents that have said, like, oh yeah, we rented here because of the reviews. We rented here because we saw the reviews here, and the reviews at another property, and the reviews at your property were better, and that's where we wanted to live. So I think it does make a big impact on it, and we've seen that from when we weren't getting reviews to now when we are getting reviews. And it also helps with the search, so that's good. And just definitely something that we always push and make sure that we have, because it is very important.
Yeah,
One question that's recently come up for us is, it's like reviews have been around for forever now, but now there's comments on TikToks and Reels. And how do we address those? Because sometimes you will have hundreds of comments on a TikTok or a Reel, some of which are good and some of which are bad. And how do you prioritize the time to handle those in the best manner that will suit your business? I think that's transparently big question for us, and how we deal with that going forward.
Yeah, what you're saying was validated again by the research. If you got 91% of the renters use reviews, I don't think that's a shock to anyone. I mean, like you said, Sarah, reviews have been around forever. I did want to highlight something that Sarah Graham wrote actually in one of her LinkedIn posts, which to me was fascinating, because it was less about attracting a renter and more about the renewals and retention, which I think is probably important right now. Just where we're at in the marketplace. But she wrote, and I'm paraphrasing her a little bit, but it's renewals drop when the experience falls short of expectations. And when the resident experience delivers, it carries weight. Retention climbs, word of the mouth spreads, reviews seemingly rate themselves. So again, getting the idea of like, do we have to solicit, or do we just do a good job and reviews, write themselves? So I think that's really, really fascinating. Again, responding to them, having a good experience, doing great things online on your channels. Any comments on that? Any thoughts on what you wrote there?
I mean, I'll just say as a quick aside, I think, generally when people are really happy, they want to share that feeling with somebody else. And I know there's this long-standing sort of framework that reviews are everyone's vent session. But I think that's still true. But I also think that there's a lot of, sort of a switch in some ways where people want to share the good news too. And they want people to know about the incredible experience that they had. I looked at my own Google reviews the other day, and I would say nearly all of them are 5-star reviews. I'm one of those people that when something amazing happens, I want to share it with people. And so I think there's something to be said for venting or having this experience. But I think there's a sort of different take on the reviews and the value that they bring. And so The point behind that post was really, it's all about the resident experience. And if we are the marketing team is, paving the way for the customer experience to unfold. And so if the experience delivers, ideally residents are living what we promised them. The promise becomes real. And so that was really sort of the intent behind it, and that, the reviews seemingly write themselves when those things happen.
Excellent, sure.
Yeah, that was a great article. And also, your residents are our advocates. Our residents can also be part of our marketing team in a way. And I think, and we, we really push our referral program. Good friends make great neighbors. Let your friends know about it. If you love it here, let them know. Let them love if you love where you live. So I think that's a big thing, is we do have to also take care of the residents that are still there, not just focus on the prospect. And the residents that write the reviews, they show, it's showing that they actually do like it here. And, I think that's something that we're really big. We really push the referral program with our residents.
Another thing, just going back to, the boots on the ground, the site teams, and giving them the confidence to ask for the feedback, and not obviously specifically say, can you leave me a 5-star review, but saying, hey, if I helped you out today, would you mind leaving me a review on Google? We had one maintenance technician who has his name specifically mentioned in over 300 reviews at his property, because he had a QR code on the back of his name badge. And he, after every single service request, would say, like, hey, I appreciate the opportunity to help you today. If you have a couple minutes, would you mind leaving me a review? It would mean a lot to me. And it just became part of, his daily habit at his job. And the feedback was absolutely amazing. And everybody knows that DeAndre at Cape House in Florida is the guy to go to if you ever have, an issue in your apartment. And is always going to be friendly and helpful because of the feedback that he was able to get from all of the residents that he helped.
That guy a raise, huh?
Yeah, that's
Right.
great.
Well, he was promoted to a lead
There you go.
maintenance technician. So
That's great. And I think with when our managers and maintenance see their name in the reviews, it excites them. We share that with them and they get excited, and it's like, oh, look, you made this resident happy, or their experience, and it excites them. So then, like what you were saying, Sarah, then, they can ask residents for the reason, if you had a good experience here, please, if you wouldn't mind sharing. And I think that's a good, booster for them, is to see their name and see their names in the reviews and see that they've actually made someone's experience great.
Well, look, we've had some great discussions here. I wanted to kind of tie this up and get to the answer to the questions in the chat. Kind of as put a bow on it, as they say, or tying this thing up here. There's 3 action items that we really outline in this report that marketers can take. And number 1 is go omni-channel or go home. So basically show up where they are, the renters are. Adapt to the new discovery journey. So again, proof versus polished. We had that pretty healthy discussion, I think, multiple times in this thing. And then the last one is just equip every location to win locally. So local visibility is your growth engine. And those are the 3 real key takeaways. For those that haven't maybe seen the report, we certainly can provide that to you. It's out there. So obviously we're here to help, but there's a lot more information here than beyond what we reviewed here. So I'd like to just jump into the chat here real quick, and let me read a couple questions. Let's see here. First question, I don't know the name on this person, so I apologize, but if you're using AI in a daily operations, how much time are you saving? And are you using that saved time to give your employees more work, or giving them different, perhaps strategic tasks? So I guess anyone on the panel can.
So we are not looking necessarily at time saved. Yes, I can say, on average, we're saving with like a lead nurturing program, like 11 to 15 hours a week, right, at the site level. But it's almost like, what are we enabling our teams to better do, or how can we better convert the traffic that we are paying lots and lots of money for? Because we all know that we're spending a ton of money to generate traffic and to bring prospects to the property, but maybe our teams could not physically have the time of day to get to all of those leads that we're paying thousands of dollars to bring in. So we're able to convert at a much higher level because of the support that we're giving with the AI, rather than assigning them more tasks to do. Because at the end of the day, they couldn't even do the minimum amount of follow-ups that we were expecting because of the traffic that we were bringing them. So it's not necessarily, oh man, now what can we assign them, or how can we cut costs and, have fewer team members on site. That's not at all what we're looking at. It's how can we equip them with a tool to help support what they should be doing on a daily basis and taking care of our residents, going back to what Sarah said, with the resident experience, so that they can deliver that top-notch resident experience and get people to sign those renewals, rather than those people moving out after one lease term.
Anyone else got a
It
comment?
helps. And it helps with efficiency for us. That's what we're seeing. It makes them more efficient. And again, we're not, again, trying to give them more tasks, just help them do their tasks easier.
Yeah, I think there's a
Better.
lot to be said for the handoff between humans and AI, and it sort of streamlines. And as Kelly was saying earlier in the conversation, there's a lot of that sort of 24/7 immediate on-demand stuff that happens when our teams aren't in the office. So the clients I'm working with, sure, there's absolutely time saved, but I wouldn't say that that's the primary KPI. It's more, how do we think about making people's jobs easier, putting them in places where they need to be having those conversations. And then it's not really about giving them more work. It's more realigning their work, what can be handled and automated on their behalf, and then where do they need to focus their attention the most. So I would say it's more of a bifurcation instead of giving people more things to do.
Life easier. We don't like that.
Hmm.
All right, so let me move on to the next question here. This is around the affordable industry. So for the affordable housing industry, where the resident journey may not be as typical as market rate properties, obviously, what are the most popular search platforms advertising renters are utilizing specifically for the seniors and disabled? And what resources are available for marketers to keep up with these ever evolving ways in renter search? So Kelly, this might be a good one for you. I think you've got some affordable experience.
Yeah, so we have a senior living property, and they are very active on Facebook, is what we found. They are probably our most active audience. You wouldn't think, but so that's where we have focused a lot on, is, it's not on referrals. Like a referral program doesn't really work there. But as far as like Facebook, a lot of our residents at the senior living are on Facebook. We still, some of our managers have digital cards, but they want the paper cards. And so that's where we have to remember that, that we need to gear our advertising and our marketing and everything towards them. And that has been the biggest, it was a big surprise, and they'll comment on our Facebook post and like it more than anyone else. That's where we've seen the most value, and they do stay active. And then we have a lot of events that go on there, and a lot of stuff, and let them know about the community, and a lot of community events and what's going on in the community. And we have a van that can come pick them up and take them places. So we really have to cater to what their lifestyle is like. And Facebook really has been our biggest platform that we've used to advertise and communicate with them. And also, I know sometimes they have their family members that are looking for them. So we still do have advertisements on other avenues, other platforms. We still do utilize them, but Facebook is the biggest priority.
I would just layer into my last in-house role before I went out on my own as a consultant and fractional executive was for a company that was a primarily affordable portfolio. And so I would say, just as much as a market rate asset, the digital footprint. So making sure that you do have your Google business profile claimed and optimized, and thinking about, are you, maybe you have a social media presence, maybe you don't. I think that's on a case by case basis, depending on what bandwidth the team has. I know my on-site teams in that particular company, some of the properties had Facebook pages and others did not, just by virtue of what bandwidth somebody had to manage it. But I think the sort of making sure that your listings are claimed, making sure that they are optimized, responding to reviews, all of that is incredibly important. And Kelly nailed it. It's not always the renter who's doing the search. Sometimes it's a family member. And so making sure you're providing as much information as you can, I think is incredibly important. And that also goes back to what we were talking about before with ChatGPT. All of those different pieces being completed and claimed, and all of that will help you become more visible in the sort of search process there too. So I just offer that up as additional context.
Yeah, wait lists are so 90s. We have a lot of affordable clients, and I've maintained that, pounding the table for that their journey is pretty similar to everyone else's journey. So you gotta follow the same path, in my opinion. So anyway, appreciate the answers there. Hopefully it helped the audience member who asked that. So next question here. This is, do you think the industry will feel the impact of Meta's recent update where they're allowing their content to be indexed with Google?
Yes. I think we're going to feel it. I mean,
All
the
about
fact
it.
that we can have our Instagram pages now indexed by Google is huge. So I know my LinkedIn feed is just blowing up with people talking about that. I'm sure yours is too. But I think there's a lot of potential there. I think what will be interesting is, what happens with advertising dollars. And I think it's too soon to tell what maybe that looks like. But I think the fact that Instagram can now be indexed by Google is largely a good thing for us, because our pages, our Instagram accounts, so much care has been put into creating those. And so the fact that they are more visible now, I think is hopefully a good thing.
Sarah, you're nodding your head. I can see it.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the impact will be. I mean, we haven't seen it quite yet in the numbers, but I definitely am going to be on the lookout for that in the coming months for sure.
Indeed. Great. I'll move on to the next question. I just want to remind those two, if you're in that chat, we've put Social's marketing teams put that report in there, so you can access the link pretty easily right on the fly here. So, all right, next question. We love finding creative ways to repurpose content and enjoy giving our on-site teams inspiration on how to reuse posts, reviews, and more, so they don't always have to start from scratch. It also helps us use which types of content perform best. So I think it's more of a statement, but maybe you guys could sort of comment around that. Not necessarily a question, more of a statement, sounds like.
All about repurposing content. I think we spoke to that earlier. And if you can find ways, and now again, with some of the AI resources that we have in ChatGPT to splice and dice different videos and photos and things from different properties, whether you're creating content at the corporate level, at the individual level, all of that, it can be used in so many different ways to showcase, who you are as a brand. I think what we've done is at the corporate social media level, we'll take snippets of different videos that we've filmed, whether it's at a leadership conference, whether it's at one of our holiday party events, whether it's from one of our properties, and we'll use it throughout. Or we will, regurgitate pictures that we've taken several years ago at like an awards banquet or something like that to incorporate into a post about our culture and how we're celebrating employee diversification or things like that. So repurposing content can be taken so many different ways. I think it is really important, especially since that way you don't have to worry about the additional spend. If you are wanting to get that professional content filmed, you can repurpose it in so many different ways.
Okay, excellent. Scrolling through here to see, this is a good one, I think. I mean, we talked a little bit about this at the top of the call, but what do you recommend if it seems like property managers, on-site teams did not want to use the software meant to assist and aid them, even with a supportive approach and resources provided?
A great question. I talk to a lot of on-site teams, and I think the question I would want to ask is why? Why are your teams not using the software? Because in my experience, if it feels like it's just one more thing they have to do and they don't understand the why behind it, and if they haven't been asked for feedback during your rollout process, that can get really sticky. So my question to the question, if they're looking for guidance and advice, is to go talk with your teams and say, what's up? What is getting in the way of success here, and really listen. Sometimes they don't feel like they've had the training. Sometimes they feel like it's just another thing that is thrown on their plates, sort of this mandate. And they say, well, I already have these 7 other things I'm supposed to be doing in what hour of what day should I be, doing this other thing. But I think, that feedback loop is really, really critical to the success of any new tech being deployed. And it starts with understanding the pain points, understanding the resident journey, as we talked about previously, to say, what does that actually look and feel like? Where are people getting stuck? Where are your teams getting stuck? I bet if you take a moment and say, hey, what resident feedback have you gotten? You'd get an earful. So happy to talk more about that offline. It's a topic I'm really passionate about. We could probably spend the next 9 minutes talking about that alone.
I agree. I think what is been really instrumental for us is showcasing people the big picture and then the why and the data behind it. And if you can explain it at a high level of like, okay, this, it might, be a new system for you to learn. And yep, that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. But if you do, here's all the benefits for you. And this is how people are searching. This is how people are doing things. You don't want to fall behind. If you fall behind, that ultimately means less money for you, because then you're not meeting your KPIs, you're not getting your bonuses. And so if you can put some numbers into it and showcase them the why behind why you're doing something, then I think that's been really helpful for us, because then it almost helps it click in their head. It's like, okay, this is essential to how I'm going to be able to do my job moving forward. And it's, if I want to stay up to date with the times and the way that people are moving and going about their daily lives and searching for apartments, then I need to get on board, because the numbers at the end of the day, they don't lie. The 91% of people that are looking at reviews, etc., like it is not, it's a fact that if you don't have a 4.0 on Google and you search best apartments near me, it is a fact that you will not show up. And so once people understand that and comprehend it, then I think you get a lot more buy-in to the initiatives that you're trying to roll out.
I agree. It's definitely the why, and also showing them the benefits of what benefits they're going to reap from this. And also with us, we've learned it's also the training too, making sure that they understand, because sometimes it's like, and you speak with them one-on-one or in a smaller group, and then they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Sometimes they get intimidated. So just, being there, supporting them and explaining it to them and showing them, this is step by step, and the benefits and the outcome, what the outcome could be when we do these different practices. And I think that's the big thing. But for us was also just making sure that they understand, like you said, the why and what it's really going to do for them, and it's going to help us and help them and help the properties.
Great dialogue. Believe it or not, we're at the top of the hour. So as I figured, we could keep going and this is an amazing group of speakers and panelists and industry experts. So I really appreciate everyone's time and contributions, and I personally enjoyed it, and I believe the audience did as well. And you brought some really great insights and deep insights and industry expertise. So thank you three for contributing, and I think everyone for else joining. And obviously, if you want to get access to the report outside of what the link we had in the chat, this is just scan the QR code here, and we'll leave it up there for a bit. But hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thanks so much again for participating.
Thank you.